I'll try and keep my answer short as well. I tend to ramble like my books. Yeah, you got to keep me honest. Yeah.
Okay. I'm reading The Seven Moons of Mali at the moment. It's quite spooky and I'm very into it because I live in that Beira and so on area. So does this mean that now you've gone into children's books, you're going to stop writing adult novels? Because that would break my heart.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. There's a third novel which I've already started writing and planning and putting together. There's no corpses in that one, no ghosts, no cricketers. Might have a few drunks. That's all I'm at liberty to say. But yeah, I. So no, no, so I'm start that, but I'm doing children's books. I'm also doing short stories. I'm working on a screenplay. I think it's good for your to-do list as a writer to have lots of things because then and I do articles and things like that because you end up doing the least urgent thing. So when there's an article due tomorrow, that's when I start working on my novel. And so I have if you have just one thing to do, follow up, book a novel with another novel, you're probably not gonna do it. So I'm branching out into all these other things, but yeah, I'll still keep writing novels. Yeah.
So while you're writing the children's books, you've got a novel on the back burner, as it were.
Yep. Yes. I read about 7 books at the same time, so why not write 7 books at the same time? Yeah.
A really quick question. I loved your book, Chinaman, but as someone who served as a physician in 1990 in Polonnaru, I saw on a daily basis children who'd been cut in 12 pieces, infants, young men without legs. I found your second book, the Book of Almeida, very different to the Chinaman, which as a Sri Lankan I loved. Can you tell us why there was this, what is previous speaker sitting there, right where you're sitting an hour ago, said the evolution. Why was there this evolution in your spirit from when you wrote Chinaman to Almeida? I'm sorry, I'll keep it.
That's a great question, and yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And I had I was a child at that time, and I had a vicarious background seat to it. But I interviewed many people like yourself who were on the front lines, who did see the horrors firsthand. I think it was also, firstly, maybe different stages of life, but also a different brief. So the brief for the first book, for me, you always think you can write a book, and I wrote short stories here and there. And it seemed like when I was writing the early 2000s, the go-to topics was the war. Were Sinhala boy, Tamil girl, sort of star-crossed love affair, but always the war was a theme or character. And I didn't feel, I was probably in my late 20s, I didn't feel qualified that I had anything to say about the war. And I thought, is it possible to write a Sri Lankan book that does not mention the war? And amidst all these horrors, we'd won a Cricket World Cup, which was a fantastic fairy tale. And so I thought, can I write a book that just is about 2 old men who just watch cricket and drink arak? Arak's our other passion. And this is also how the Colombo bubble functioned. I grew up in Colombo. We pretended that the war was in another country. It was so, we'd see the things in the newspaper, but we'd turn to the back and look at the cricket score, and we distracted ourselves. And so I think that was the brief for China. I mean, the war still makes an appearance and is there in the background, but does the Sri Lankan story just have to be this singular thing about this dystopia that's a war-torn nation? Can it be about the joys of what we did in the 96 World Cup and drinking arak and old uncles are entertaining, in short doses. We've sat, depending on how far the bottle is down, they actually have some wisdom to share. Not much action, but a lot of wisdom. And so that was the brief for Chinaman, but I think by the time it came to write 7 Moons, you're 10 years older, maybe you're a bit more cynical, and maybe you know a bit more and about what's gone on. And also, it was the aftermath, the post-war. So 2009, the war ended, and we had such hope, especially our generation who'd grown up in the 80s with this idea of perpetual forever war. We thought it'll never end, and then it ends, and you think, okay, now the country's going to be unstoppable. All the expats are going to come back, we're going to build this nation. And what happened? We ended up just squabbling about whose fault it was, how many died. No, it wasn't our fault, it was their fault, and just doing counter propaganda against each other. And then 10 years later, we had an economic collapse. So I think I wanted to write about that, and I felt qualified, having written a silly book about cricket, to write about this. But I wasn't brave enough to write about 2009. I probably still am not. But I thought, okay, let's go to 89. There was a huge list of, sadly, tragedies I could choose from. But I remember 1989 as possibly the worst, darkest period in our history. And so that's the reason. So very different briefs, and that's why very different tone of books.
Anyone else, or just one more? Very briefly, Shehan.
So you do all this research, right? When do you decide when to write, or how do you decide this is now me going to write? How do you decide that?
Very good question, a good writerly question. I use pencils, 7B, 6B, 5B pencils. Once I wear down 3 of them, I also write on old school longhand on A3 sheets of paper. When I fill about 20 of them and paste them, then I've done enough research, I feel. Because you can get lost in, and the research also never stops. You're still, when you're in a book, you're still open to that world. So I was still collecting ghost stories and all that, but I think I've heard writer teachers tell you, you're allowed to read 3 books on the topic, just 3 books, and then keep going, because you can get lost down rabbit holes. But also time periods. So now I'm starting the new book, hopefully tomorrow. Oh no, we've got a session tomorrow. Okay, day after. Tuesday. I'll start it on Tuesday. And I'll do the research and the writing, but I'll have a hard deadline. Maybe April 30th, I'm going to start writing chapter 1, whether you're ready or not. Because you need that as well, because research can turn into procrastination. But generally 3 pencils and 20 sheets of A3. Later, you're good to go. Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. Superb audience, of course, a fabulous interviewee for me. And this book, The Birth Lottery and Other Surprises, are at Sarasavi if you would like to get a copy by Shehan. And the baby books, I don't know where they are really.
Should be at Sarasavi and all good bookshops, but also papayabooks.com.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we can